They walk away like nothing happened, like the world is still theirs to enjoy. They wear new smiles, louder laughter, fresh distractions, but underneath, something's cracking, quietly, because the truth about betrayal is simple. It never leaves the one who commits it untouched. You see, when someone breaks your trust, they don't just hurt you, they hurt themselves in ways they can't even name. They think it's over, they think they've won. But betrayal has a memory, and it does not forget. There's a kind of peace in this world that cannot be faked. It comes from being honest, being loyal, being clean inside. And when you betray someone who loved you, trusted you, stood beside you, that peace vanishes, not for the betrayed, but for the betrayer. They'll try to outrun it. New faces, new places, loud distractions, shallow laughter. But silence is loud when guilt moves in, and guilt always does. Betrayal stains the betrayer, not the betrayed. They think they've walked away clean, unmarked, untouched, as if breaking your trust was just another moment, something they could do, then discard, like trash on a passing wind. But because betrayal doesn't cling to the one who receives it, it clings to the one who delivers it. They may have hurt you. They may have left you with questions, silence, confusion, maybe even tears. But what they don't realize is that pain passes and stains remain. Not on you, on them. There's a misconception the world loves to spread, that if someone betrays you, you're the broken one. You're the weak one. You're the one who got played. But here's the truth. Betrayal doesn't diminish your value, it exposes theirs. You gave something sacred, your trust, and they took it, not with gratitude, not with care, but with greed, cowardice, or cold calculation. And that act, that choice, it doesn't disappear when the moment ends. It etches itself into them, because every time they betrayed you, they betrayed something inside themselves too. Their integrity, their character, their ability to look themselves in the mirror without flinching. And maybe they won't notice it at first. Maybe for a while they'll feel invincible, free. But the human conscience is not easily silenced. Not forever. You see, betrayal is like ink on white cloth. The damage is done the moment the ink touches it, even if they pretend it's not there. Even if they turn the cloth inside out, show a cleaner side to the world. They know, they carry it, and it begins to show, not in loud ways, but in small, subtle fractures. They avoid quiet, they avoid depth. They seek validation in shallow places. They become louder but emptier, smiling but not serene, because no matter how hard they try to convince themselves, they know what they did, they know what they lost, and in losing your trust, they lost a part of themselves they might never get back. The ironic thing is, they betrayed you to feel powerful, to feel in control, to feel like they had the upper hand. But what they did was handcuff their soul to a moment of weakness. That moment lives inside them now. It lives in the questions they avoid, in the memories they try to rewrite, in the silence they can't explain. So don't let their act confuse you. Don't let their smile fool you. They might seem okay, but what they carry is heavier than anything they left you with. Betrayal is not a transaction that ends with a goodbye. It's a mirror, a reflection, a truth teller. It doesn't haunt the innocent. It haunts the guilty. And while they might roam freely in the world, inside they are not free. They are bound to the choice they made, and the weight of what it says about them. Yeah, you survive, you learn, you rebuild, stronger, wiser, more cautious with your heart. And though you may carry the pain for a while, you do not carry the stain. That belongs to them. So the next time you wonder if they're at peace, if they're thriving, while you're just trying to make sense of what happened, remember this: betrayal stains the betrayer, not the betrayed. And no amount of noise can drown the quiet shame they live with. Peace doesn't come to those who shatter trust. They laughed after they left, smiled a little wider, maybe even looked happier, like they'd shed a burden, like betraying you was some strange kind of freedom. And perhaps for a moment it was. There's a kind of rush in breaking something delicate. It makes people feel powerful. But here's the secret they never tell you. Peace doesn't come from destruction. It doesn't live in broken promises. You can't burn bridges and expect the light to warm you. And no one who shatters trust walks away whole. You see, peace isn't loud. It's not in the parties or the noise or the fast-moving carousel of distractions. It's found in stillness, in being able to close your eyes at night without needing to silence your own thoughts. Peace is quiet, but it's also honest. And people who betray others often find that honesty is the one place they can no longer live. They think they're free because they escape the consequences. But there's a cost to everything. And the price of betraying someone who trusted you is that you no longer trust yourself. At first, they don't notice it. They keep moving. They post louder, laugh harder, act like nothing touches them. But peace is never about appearances. It's about alignment between what you do and who you are. And when you betray someone, that alignment breaks. A fracture forms between the image and the soul. They carry that fracture with them everywhere. It follows them into new relationships, into new rooms, into moments when the world goes quiet. And suddenly, there's nothing left to distract them from what they've done. Because you can silence a person, but you can't silence your own conscience forever. They shattered something sacred. Trust isn't just a word, it's a bond. Visible maybe, but real, strong, fragile. And when they broke it, they also broke something inside themselves. Something they'll never quite fix. And you'll see it in their patterns. They move on too fast, talk too much, get defensive when nothing was said. They tell half-truths and call it healing. They chase new connections and call it moving on. But all they're really doing is running from the echo. And peace, real peace, doesn't chase. It waits. It lives in still waters, in quiet minds. And you can't enter that space with guilt on your hands. So while they may look fine, while the world may even applaud their confidence, their strength, their so-called growth, deep down they know. They know what they did. They know what they broke. And no amount of new beginnings will erase the ending they caused. Because every lie told has a cost. Every time you break someone's heart and walk away, you don't just leave a wound behind, you create one inside yourself. You can't build peace on a foundation of deception. They think your forgiveness is what they need. They might even reach out one day, with casual words and subtle guilt trips, hoping you'll say, "It's okay, I understand. I've let it go." But that's not what they're really after. What they want is peace, not yours. Theirs. They hope your forgiveness will absolve their guilt, that if you're okay, then maybe they can be okay too. But life doesn't work that way. You can forgive someone without fixing them. You can move on while they stay stuck. And often they do. Because peace doesn't come from being excused. It comes from accountability, from change, from looking in the mirror and truly confronting who you've become. And the ones who betray without remorse, they don't do that. They run from you, from themselves, from the truth that haunts them at night. And maybe one day the silence will get too loud. Maybe one day the mask will slip, and they'll realize it wasn't freedom they gained, it was loneliness. Not the kind you fix with people, but the kind that lives deep inside. When you know you can't ever go back and undo what you did to someone who meant you no harm. So let them have their noise. Let them have their show. You don't need to match their energy. Because you're not the one who lost peace. They are. They shattered trust to feel in control, and lost the only thing control can't buy, peace of mind. And they'll spend a lifetime trying to find it again, in places it never lived. The mind remembers what the conscience tries to bury. They carry on as though nothing ever happened. They walk through life rehearsing normalcy, smiles stitched into place, laughter rehearsed, casual conversations laced with just enough charm to pass undetected. And to the outside world it works. No alarm bells ring, no shadows fall across their face when your name comes up. But beneath that careful choreography something trembles. Because there's a truth about the mind. It remembers, even when the conscience tries to bury it, especially then. The mind stores every moment of betrayal, every lie told, every look avoided, every promise broken. It keeps the footage rolling long after the event has ended. The betrayer thinks they can run from guilt, that if they just don't look back it won't catch up. But memory has its own heartbeat, and guilt is a slow, persistent echo. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't even need to speak loudly. It just waits, tucked beneath their skin, under the noise, under the pretending. And it surfaces at the most inconvenient times, when they're alone, when it's quiet, when no one's around to perform for. That's when the flashbacks begin. A glance, a word, a familiar silence, and suddenly, there it is. The moment they turn their back on someone who trusted them. And they remember. The tone of your voice, the way you looked at them when you still believed in them. The last time they saw your eyes filled with trust instead of confusion. It all returns, sharper than they expected, more vivid than they can handle. But they don't show it. They can't. So they bury it again, with distractions, with new people, with forced narratives they repeat like mantras. It had to happen. They were too much. I was just protecting myself, but deep down they know. And their mind knows too. Because you can gaslight everyone else, but you cannot gaslight yourself forever. The lies start to feel hollow. The justifications lose their force. And each time they repeat them, it feels less like truth and more like a cover-up. Their conscience doesn't rage. It whispers. It taps on the walls when things go still. It stirs during moments of joy, subtly reminding them, this is borrowed peace, not real peace. You betrayed someone who didn't deserve it, and your mind hasn't forgotten. They might change the story when they retell it to others. They might frame themselves as the victim, or the hero, or the misunderstood soul. But the subconscious doesn't buy the performance. It knows the full version, the unedited scenes. The night they said what they didn't mean. The text they sent behind your back. The lie they let you believe because it was easier than being honest. All of it is logged, catalogued, and filed away, not in some ethereal moral vault, but in their own brain. And it waits. Because that's the cruel, quiet genius of memory. It doesn't seek revenge, it just waits to be heard. So when they wake in the middle of the night, uneasy and unsure why, when they find themselves suddenly irritable, defensive, short-tempered with others, they won't always connect the dots, but something inside does. Something remembers. Because betrayal isn't just a wound inflicted on someone else. It's a shadow you cast on your own character, one that follows you into every future room you enter. It doesn't go away when the betrayed person moves on. It lingers, because it was never about them alone. It was about who you allowed yourself to become. And when the conscience tries to smother it, the mind simply stores it for later. So they live with it. They carry the contradiction of pretending while remembering. They build futures while dragging anchors from the past. And no matter how many times they smile in public, there is always a part of them that dreads silence. Because silence is where truth speaks loudest. That's where the mind replays the footage. That's where the conscience lifts the carpet and shows them what they tried to hide. You don't need to remind them. Life will. Their own inner world will. Not as punishment, but as consequence. And the consequence of betraying someone pure, someone who only offered love, loyalty, or trust is this: you lose access to your own peace. You carry a story your lips won't speak, but your nervous system remembers. The anxiety, the restlessness, the inexplicable guilt when someone new trusts them again. That's not coincidence. That's memory. That's the conscience waking up. And once it does, it doesn't go back to sleep. True strength lies in how you walk away, not how you retaliate. There's a moment after betrayal where everything in you wants to react, to scream, to explain, to expose, to make them feel even a fraction of what they made you feel. And who could blame you? When someone takes a knife to your trust and walks away as if it were nothing, it's only human to want the world to know what they did, to show everyone who they really are behind the mask. But here's the truth most never understand. Strength isn't in the reaction, it's in the restraint. Walking away without revenge, without drama, without destruction isn't weakness. It's power, a quiet, unshakable kind of power that speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. Because when you choose not to retaliate, you choose not to become them. You refuse to let their choices rewrite your character. You protect your soul from their chaos. And in that moment, you reclaim something they can't touch: your integrity. They expect rage. They expect a war. Why? Because that would justify what they did? If you react wildly, they can point at you and say, "See? That's why I had to walk away." But when you don't play their game, when you rise in silence and keep walking, you strip them of the narrative. You leave them with only the truth, that they broke something real, and you somehow stood tall through the wreckage. And yes, silence hurts. Letting go without closure stings. You'll feel the ache of unanswered questions, the weight of words you never got to say. But slowly you realize you don't need them to hear you. You need you to heal. And healing doesn't always come with grand finales. Sometimes it comes in quiet mornings, in choosing peace over pettiness, in realizing that protecting your heart doesn't mean closing it, but guarding it with discernment. People often think walking away is giving up. It's not. It's choosing not to give more energy to something that's already taken too much. It's choosing not to bleed for someone who wouldn't even notice the wound. It's saying without a single word, "I deserve better than this." That kind of dignity, the kind that doesn't scream, doesn't chase, doesn't beg. It speaks volumes, and it stays with them. Because deep down, they'll remember. They'll remember that you could have destroyed them with what you knew, that you could have retaliated, turned others against them, dragged their name through the mud. But you didn't. And that silence will echo longer than any accusation ever would. One day, when the noise around them fades, when the people they ran to begin to see through the act, they'll think of you, not with comfort, with contrast, because they'll realize they didn't just lose a person. They lost someone who had every reason to retaliate and chose not to. That's power. That's grace. That's strength most people never reach. So if you've been betrayed, and you're wondering whether walking away in silence was the right choice, know this: you didn't lose by leaving. You won by not lowering yourself. You won by keeping your peace when they tried to steal it. You won by choosing to heal instead of hate. And that is something no one, not even a betrayer, can take from you. Time reveals what silence never needed to prove. Time doesn't rush, it doesn't scream. It doesn't need to. Because time is the one force that never lies, never hides, never forgets. And when you've been betrayed, when someone you trusted turned their back and walked away as if your loyalty meant nothing. You might feel like the truth will stay buried forever, but it doesn't. Time always tells, not with grand declarations, not with dramatic moments, but in the subtle unraveling of masks, the quiet shifts in people's energy, the way stories begin to lose their shape when told too many times. Eventually, truth makes its way to the surface, not because you forced it there, but because it was always waiting. You don't have to defend yourself to people who only saw a version of the story. You don't need to beg anyone to see your side, because in time, patterns speak louder than explanations. And when someone lives dishonestly, when they betray without remorse, their own behavior will begin to betray them. You'll see it, not in their fall, but in their fade. In the way people stop trusting them, without knowing why. In the way their relationships become shorter, shallower. In the way they struggle to maintain what once came easily. Because when someone hurts others to feel powerful, eventually they lose the very power they craved. Not through punishment, but through the slow erosion of peace, respect, and trust. Time has a way of revealing character. Yours, theirs, everyone's.